um, figuring out, what product to place our clients into. I want to I want to get into like how to build the value. And Bryce, I want you to kind of hit on that. But if I can just take a little bit of time and just really, if we can focus on getting the presentation and asking good questions throughout the financial inventory, you will get help to build the plan. Okay. A lot of the times building the plan too early will make a new agent sell the plan too early. Okay. Meaning we got to pivot and do things. There's underwriting. And as a new agent, you may not have everything you need to make that decision. Okay. And I would much rather you get really good at financial inventory, really good at getting all the medication, knowing their scenario, and then really good at unmuting yourself on live if you're not already unmuted and go, hey, Marisa, I got a client, 58 years old. They got this, and this, and this. What would you recommend? If you do that, you will learn how to build great plans with no confusion. If you don't do that, you're going to make mistakes that are unwarranted and really we can help with. You with me? And our clients may not give you that much grace. So I would say just be very intentional, okay, with this piece, because a lot of the times, like honestly, you guys, I never know what product I'm going to sell anybody until I actually get into it. As a new agent, I would have a product already in mind in the application and the calculator, and I'd already be assuming how much it would be before I even said hello. Anybody relate to that? You're too far ahead. Makes sense? You're thinking too much about the thing that does not make clients make a decision. They're not making a decision based on Americo or Mutual of Omaha. They're making a decision based on who you are, your structure you provide, and how well you make them feel about that. And then we can build the plan and do all that after. Okay. But Bryce is going to share with you guys some really good stuff on building the plan. All right. And take it all in. I'm not saying don't build the plan and you're going to call somebody for underwriting help every single time. But I promise you, your first 3 weeks, I'd say your first 20, 15 to 20 presentations, do that. Do that. And if you're not doing that, be ready to get some things rescinded. Be ready to tell the client that it's not this much, it's this much. Make sense? I don't want you in those scenarios. I don't want you to be pitching somebody this term policy, and then you're like, dude, they got congestive heart failure, bro. They can't get that. Oh man, I just told them that NLG will go up to this with living benefits. I'm like, oh my gosh, why did you do that? The clients only know what we share with them. And sometimes when you know much about products and how good they are, you share too much too early. So be careful with the information he's going to give you. Okay. All right. Use it, but be very clear. If you set who you are and everything up, get confident through that financial inventory. All right. The product's going to sell itself. You're going to be able to build the product yourself, but we can't help you build it. Well, we can help you build value, but spend some time early building value. All right. So Bryce, I'm going to turn it over to you, bro. All right. 90 plus persistency. Bryce pivots, but when he pivots, it's like he's surprised. Okay. He's surprised pivot. I pivot and I'm not surprised because I'm just like, all right, let me just shoot something and see if it works. Like he don't shoot and see if it works. All right. So my man, Bryce Evans, dude, it's all yours.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna keep it super simple because I'm gonna take it back to something very simple and repeatable, the place to start when it comes to building the plan, because this is a place where I noticed that I think as new agents we overthink it, we overcomplicate it, and so we just skip this part, right? Which is the building the plan part and like actually like assigning a value to the number. So I'm going to give you guys like simple, repeatable starting point to do every single time. And then, maybe in another training, we can build off how to get more elaborate with it. And you can, take it from there. But I want you to do this same thing every time. So everybody, I want you to write these couple things down, and it's going to be like a step by step, right? So the first thing write down is script, because that, like the script that we practice on our release presentation, the script we all use is basically, it's obviously not the entire presentation. It's just the starting point. It just gathers some basic information and sets the table for what we're going to do in the call, right? So write down script. Next step from that is financial inventory or client worksheet. So script, financial inventory. Step 3, after we have that filled out, is build the plan, which is what I'm going to go over today. Step 4, showing options and closing, like actually presenting numbers. And then step 5 is the application. That's the order of the sale. Does that make sense? We go through the script, we fill out the financial inventory, which is basically health questions and income questions or budget questions, right? Then we design the plan for them. Then we show them numbers. Then we after they pick one, then we submit the application. So I'm going to take it back to the script, right? In the script, we ask Dom, in terms of what you're looking to accomplish with this coverage, is your main concern just covering the initial cost of the funeral and the final expenses? Or did you want to leave some money, additional money behind to either like replace lost income, cover something like a mortgage, or just like leave a gift behind? So, for the sake of this training, let's play the odds. What is the most common answer to that question, right? And I'm big on like, let's get really good at one thing first. Let's get really good at the most common thing, the most simple thing, and then we can kind of expand on it from there. So what's the most common answer to that question? Final expenses, right? The most, when you ask what are you mainly looking to accomplish with this coverage, the main answer we get is final expenses. So let's focus on getting really good at that. Okay. Um, so they say they want to cover their final expenses. I don't dig super deep from there. Like I know in general that's what they're looking to accomplish with this. So like in this intro part of the script, I have their beneficiary, I have the beneficiary's relationship, whether or not they have some existing life insurance and they're just looking to add to, or they don't have any set up yet, and from a high level view, what they're looking to accomplish with this coverage, right? That's the only thing I'm getting out of this script. Because again, if I start to go too deep into some things, I may be getting too out in front of myself, like Don was saying, right? And I don't know anything about their budget. I don't know anything about their health. So I just want to get a high level view. I call it painting the outline. If the sale is a picture, like the intro part of the script is just the outline, right? So I got the outline of got it. You're looking to cover your final expenses. Let me get some information about you, and then we'll circle back to that and get more specific with what you're looking to accomplish with the coverage. And again, like if you really read this script, it tells you exactly what to do just by reading the script. Like it says in the script, um, I'm gonna ask you some questions about your budget, about your health. Then we'll get a little bit more specific about what you're looking to accomplish with this coverage, which is that point, and then move on from there. So again, high level view, final expenses. Now, I would ask these questions every single time when it comes to building the plan, right? So think about it like this. We went through the script, the intro part of the script. We filled out the financial inventory, so we know that their main goal is to cover final expenses. We know their health, we know their budget, right? Now it's like, okay, now what? Here's exactly what to say. Okay, Lacey, so to get more specific with what you're looking to accomplish with this coverage, now we know from a high level view you want to cover your final expenses, right? But to get more specific, do you know whether you want to be buried or cremated? So start there. Like some of us if we just started ask that question, it would lead to building a plan and finding some value as opposed to just kind of throwing out numbers out there and seeing what sticks, right? So start with that. So got it. So in terms of what you're looking to accomplish, do you know whether you want to be buried or cremated? They're going to answer that. Buried, cremated, whatever. Next question to ask. Have you ever dealt with that? Have you ever had anybody in your life pass where you've been involved with handling that? Have you ever had to pay for that? Like, just get them to talk about their experience. Does that make sense? So, to get more specific with what you're looking to accomplish with this coverage, do you know whether you want to be buried or cremated? Have you ever dealt with that? Do you have any personal experience dealing with that? A lot of times, when you ask, have you ever dealt with that or any experience with that, they're going to sell themselves. They're going to be like, yeah, my sister died. God, I'm very sorry to hear. Do you know what that looked like in terms of what everything costs? Did she have insurance to cover that? Or did you guys have to come out of pocket? Like, what did that look like, right? Like, give yourself a chance to make the sale very easy, right? When you ask those couple questions, you're giving yourself a chance for them to share some things that make it very easy for us. Because a lot of times when you say something like that, they'll be like, yep, cousin died, cost 15,000 to cover everything. I also want to be buried. It doesn't get any simpler than that because now all we got to do is go, got it. So you obviously have some experience with that. It sounds like you just want to make sure your son is not in the same position that you guys were in when your cousin died. Is that fair to say? Yep. Boom. Like, you know what I mean? And so that's why, like, when you hear people on trainings going, "Ah, these leads are great," like, do people know what they want? It's not that they just come out and say the first thing on the call, "Oh yeah, by the way, I know I want to be buried and I know it's going to cost 15,000, so how much does that cost?" They just ask these very simple line of questions to get to that point. Like, that is a layup sale in this. So a layup doesn't mean the client just comes right out of the gate and tells you. A layup means you ask those questions to make building the plan very simple. Does that make sense? So if some of us just at least started there, it would open up the floodgates or at least give ourselves a chance to have a conversation about building the plan, designing the amount of coverage that we're going to look at. So when we start looking at options, there's a value assigned to it, right? This is all in the name of, hey, if we look at 15, 20, 25,000, I call it spending the insurance. Like if we look at 15,000 of coverage, that's the bare minimum you'll need to cover your burial. If we look at 20,000, that covers your burial, but also gives yourself a little bit of wiggle room in case there's some additional expenses. And then a $25,000 plan covers your burial, leaves yourself a little bit of wiggle room, but also potentially leaves some extra cash left behind for your family, which I know you said if ideally, if you'd like to leave some money behind for your daughters. Like before I even give numbers or tell them what the costs for those options are, I spend the insurance. I say this is what the coverage is going to accomplish. Does that make sense? And so we gotta ask some questions about what their goals are to assign a value to the coverage. So when we show numbers, there's a value behind it. There's a basis. There's a reason we're looking at these numbers, and we're not just throwing stuff at the wall and hoping something sticks. So like some of us that are writing, five, seven, 10, shoot, you might even be able to write 15,000 a month with doing it the ways that some of us are doing it, just because these people filled out forms, right? And you can kind of sometimes get away with just, script, financial inventory, throw a couple numbers out there, hope they pick one, and then write an application. Like there are people on this call that are probably in their head thinking like, yep, that's kind of what I do. And I write some insurance and it works. It's like, yeah, you can get away with selling some insurance that way. But that next level of becoming their person and, helping them with truly something that's going to stick and you're going to be their person for life is by building a plan based off of what they need. So make it easy for yourself. To get more specific with what you're looking to accomplish with this coverage, do you know whether you want to be buried or cremated? Do you have any experience with that? Now, again, this next thing I'm going to say is to give yourself a starting point, to keep it simple. You're going to build off this. So don't take this as like This is law. This is always how it's going to be. But I know when I was in your shoes, my second day in the field, I called Dom and I asked this question. And I had sold 3 policies at this point. But I was like, Dom, I've been looking at numbers, just throwing stuff out there and hoping it sticks. Like, how do you find out how much coverage they need? And he was like, well, you got to ask good questions, right? You got to ask some questions. And so I went back and I watched trainings about how to ask questions to find value, right? To build the plan. So, but then he told me, but you also want to keep it simple for yourself and like have kind of your starting point numbers. Again, this is taken all the way down to basics. So after you ask about their experience with um, anybody in their life that has died and they've had to deal with the burial, final expenses, or if they ask, or if they say, some people will say, no, I've never had to deal with that. Like I've never had anybody in their life pass. Got it. Do you know how much it costs? It typically costs to handle that, right? So whether they say buried, whether they say cremated, your next question after you ask them about their experience, do you know how much it costs? Okay. Because then again, they may give it up. Yeah, I do know it costs this much typically, whatever. Like again, make it easy for yourself. Let them sell themselves. A lot of times they'll tell you some numbers there. So they're kind of this next tier of like, you will come across sometimes that people say, nope, never had anybody pass, never dealt with it. I don't know how much it costs. Again, we want to base what we're showing them off personal experience and get them tell us, but sometimes we do need to be the ones to educate. Now, again, I'm going to put a pin in for a second. Notice I didn't just skip straight to saying, "Oh, burials cost 15,000 or cremation cost 10,000." Like I asked them about their experience first, right? Then after we do that, then it's like, okay, cremation typically in the ballpark of 3 to 5,000 just for the cremation, not taking into account anything else. Burial, bare minimum 12, 15,000. So just have those numbers in your mind of like the low end numbers of what it typically costs. But so bare minimum 5,000 for cremation, 15,000 for burial. And then, uh, for cremation, you probably want to keep it around 10. So for like additional costs of services, body transportation, stuff like that. And again, this is good stuff. This is what we do. So this is good stuff to research to know exactly like what this stuff costs, right? So now we have some like actual numbers of what it takes to what the beneficiary is gonna have to deal with if we don't have this in place, right? Because once we start looking at some numbers based on what their goal is, or talking about numbers of what it's going to cost, the final question is, now, Dom, if we did not have this set up, so let's say we know they want to be buried, we agreed that it's bare minimum going to be 15,000, right? Then I go, so Dom, if we don't set this up today, what would it look like for Kylie to have to come out of pocket 15,000 to handle that? Does that make sense? Again, now some of us, it's a great question to ask, but a lot of times we skip way too fast to that question and there's no basis around it. We haven't built any value, haven't designed the plan at all, right? So the last question, the last line of questioning for this is, if we didn't set this up, what would it look like for insert beneficiary name to have to come up with that money on their own? Then step 4 of what I had you write down first, show options and close, right? So that is like the template, like the simple step by step. If you just start there and do that every time, you'll give yourself a chance to like have true value behind the numbers that you show, and it'll make showing options a lot easier. And it'll increase your persistency by a ton because we're not just throwing stuff at the wall and hoping it sticks. We're having true value behind the numbers we're showing. Any questions about any of that?
Good stuff, B. Good stuff. You guys, this recording will be on YouTube probably tonight. Rewatch it. We'll have a training now with Marisa and Rami Hamadi. Will be on the Monday night training. These two couple, they met. They were not a couple, but in this same house, they do close to about $1 million in production together, but each individually sell. Okay. And James, they do a lot of mortgage protection on there, so you'll pick some things up. They'll probably hit on how to sell old people mortgage protection as well on this one. So you guys on there, great stuff today, great feedback.